I feel like this question comes up a lot. How can you build a small account? Now, the first thing that you're going to do if you want to build a small account, there's actually three main things that you're going to want to do. The first thing that you need to do is clarify what your bigger goal is. Is this meant to be for a retirement account, something that's meant to be longer term? Are you trying to generate income? Well, what are you building this thing for? Because that goal is going to determine your methodology, right? Like, how are you going to turn this $1,000 or this $3,000 into something much bigger? Well, what are you doing this for, right? Like, because there's a lot of ways to generate money. Well, what's your goal? And then let's figure out the best way to achieve that goal, right? So that's number one. Number two, you got your goal, right? Let's say that your goal is to generate income. Great. Now you want to find somebody that's done what it is that you're trying to do. You want to model their success. There's a lot of people that you could go and model their success and figure out if this person actually knows what they're talking about, right? So one of my favorite books to read is this book called Market Wizards by a guy named Jack Schwager. He interviewed at least 50 of the top traders in the world, and they all have differing styles, and they were able to be extraordinarily successful. So if you're able to think of what it is that your goal is, there's likely somebody in that book that's already done what you're trying to do. So read that, find the persons or the different people that are doing something similar to what it is that you want to do, and then dive deeper into those people's world. That's what I did. I wanted initially to compound my wealth, and I also wanted to start to generate income based off of that, right? So I started to find guys like William O'Neill, Mark Minervini, David Ryan, started to learn more about them, and then started to model their success and apply it for myself. Right? That modeling success works. None of us need to reinvent the wheel, but we do need to learn how to drive the car. The best way to figure out how to do that is find somebody that's already done what it is that you're trying to do, and then model their success. Don't try to be a carbon copy of them. You can't do that. I've gone down that path. It doesn't work. But learn from them. Try to apply it to yourself. And then the third thing is going to be patient, right? Like, don't expect that you're going to turn this $1,000 account or this $3,000 or this $5,000 account into $1 million in the span of a year, right? Like, first, you need to learn your craft. Then after you learn it and you've gained consistency, then you can start to bet bigger. And by betting bigger, I don't mean that you're going to risk all of your capital on one trade. It's learning how to leverage your account, right? So I'll give you an example. There's been plenty of trades, and this is something that I do in my small account, in my Robinhood test account. If you've been following my newsletter, you know that I just made 12,000% in the span of 6 months in this account. But it's a very small account, right? Like, I took this account that was almost nothing and was able to dig that account out of a very steep hole. Why? Because it was like a testing account. But anyway, so I was able to generate 12,000 in the span of 12 months. How did I do that? Well, I put on a sizable position on each trade that I was taking, but that doesn't mean that the entire portfolio was at risk. I'm only risking a very small percentage of that account on each trade. I think the most that I was risking at any one point in time, I'd say, was probably about 5%. Now that is extremely risky, and I wouldn't recommend anybody to start out risking 5% unless if you actually have a good amount of experience and know what the hell you're doing. But if you are just somebody that is starting out, you need to stay in the game, right? Because there's a very famous quote, and the person that said it, the name escapes me, but he said that in order to win, you need to have enough chips where you can bet, right? But if you lose all your chips, then you can't bet. So the main idea is that you've got to stay in the game. All you need is a chip and a chair, and that gives you the ability to be at the table and to be able to win. When it comes to trading, then what you need to do is risk just 1% of your capital, right? Like at most, risk 1%. That means that you could have 100 trades and have 100 losses, and then you're out of the game, right? Nobody's going to allow themselves to have 100 losses in a row, but you get the idea. If you're only risking 1% of capital, then you could stay in this for a very long time. And when you're risking 1%, that doesn't mean that if you have $1,000 that you're only buying $10 worth of stock or $10 worth of forex. No, it means that you're only risking $10, right? So let's say you bought Tesla, right? Like Tesla's almost $1,000 at this point. Let's say you bought Tesla and you were just going to allow it to move $10, right? So great, you could buy that one share, but you would only be risking $10 on that trade. Now, that's it, not a trade that I would take, because Tesla is very whippy at this point, where the volatility of $10 could take you out. But you get the idea, right? Like it's about like being able to leverage your account, and you're only risking just a very small portion of that account. That's the idea. So again, the three main things that you want to focus on building your account is, first, figure out what in the heck is your goal. Second, you want to model success of somebody that's already achieved your goal. The people are out there. Just find 1, 2, 3 of them and learn from those guys. And then finally, the last thing that you want to do is have patience. It's going to take time. You'll get there, but you're not going to get there if you bet all of your account and you lose everything. Then you're just knocked out of the game.